disappointed but not surprised by the verdict. Why?
Right. Well, I was disappointed because we put in a lot of hours in preparation, and we did the best we could. I was not surprised because the evidence that we had to overcome was fairly substantial, at least in terms of its prejudicial value, particularly the videotapes.
What was your first reaction when you saw that evidence?
Oh, when I don't think I'll ever forget the day I saw the videos. I was admittedly shaken because, I mean, it wasn't so much what was on them. I've seen worse, believe it or not. But usually when people deal with pornography, as sometimes we do in this business, what you see are actors or actresses. The thing that really shocked me was, of course, that this was really happening, and that these two girls that were portrayed ultimately died. They were killed. And so that was very troublesome.
Given the nature of that evidence and how not only you reacted, but how you knew that a jury would react,
right.
How did that affect the way you approached the case?
Well, it certainly gave me considerable cause for concern. I didn't know how we were going to overcome that. I didn't know how we were going to structure the defense beyond the fact that he says he didn't kill either of these girls. But how do we even get anybody to come to grips with that issue once they see these tapes?
Because at a certain point, people will say, even given that everyone deserves a very vigorous defense,
right.
How do you defend someone like that personally?
Well, the short answer to that is with great difficulty. But in practical terms, you have to overcome your own personal emotions, try and be the professional you're supposed to be, and get down to the evidence. And as in any other criminal case, particularly murder cases, it's a close scrutiny of individual pieces of evidence.
What kind of an effect did having the families in the courtroom have on you and your team?
Well, the fact of the families being there was a concern of mine personally, because that was one of the things I could see when I first saw the video. Sitting in a courtroom, watching them and watching 12 ordinary people in the jury box watching them, and watching the families watch them, because I assumed that it would all have been played. As matters turned out, the families never did see the videos, and whenever they were played, the families, the members of the family stood up quite dramatically and walked out. And I complained a few times about that to no avail. So I think that prejudiced the client, because it was perfectly obvious to the jury that they were making a statement every time videos were played. And I think that undermined the appearance of fairness in the courtroom.
I'm not going to ask you to divulge or break any client confidentiality, but we've seen many sides of Paul Bernardo, not only on the stand, but in some of the tapes and things that have been released since. How would you describe him?
Well, he's, let's put it this way. If you didn't know who he was, and you met him in a social gathering, you would be very impressed with him. And if he invited you out to dinner, you might go with him, or vice versa. He's bright, he's articulate, he's intelligent, he has a sense of humor, he has his good days and his bad days like everyone else. It's been described that, in a sense, that it's as if there's a switch that's defective somewhere in his computer, in his brain. And if we could just get in there and fix that switch, he might be all right. Even he recognizes that he has a problem. And it's not only a problem with sex, but that problem, as it unfolded, unfortunately, involved the death of two young girls. Did you see that side of his character that committed those crimes in your dealings with him? Well, you mean from him, just dealing with him personally? No, but then, you know, it's a professional relationship. We see him in a certain setting, and we don't see him at other times, and so forth. And also, today you're dealing with a very different person than you were dealing with at the time of the event. He's older. He's had 2.5 years of custody. It's been a salutary effect on him. He, at the time, especially 1992, around the time of Kristen French's death. As he says himself, he and Karla Homolka were totally out of control with their sex lives. So it's a different person. He's also had the benefit of reflection, and I think that's a good thing in his case. Some people that are not similar to him, but who have similar problems, have no insight into their problem. I think he has some insight, which is the first step towards getting treatment and help.
Paul Bernardo was arrested.
The system's broken. It's completely broken, and I feel that...
This is video that the police took as they ripped apart walls, floors, furniture. They were recording what they considered to be a thorough investigation. They thought they knew what to look for. Homolka, who at this point is negotiating her deal, was slowly releasing information to the police about where to find certain evidence, like blood and vomit stains. These are shots of the upstairs bathroom. Overhead was evidence that would have sealed the police's case. The 6 videotapes showing the crimes against Mahaffy and French were hidden behind the light. Checking it should have been standard police procedure. It wasn't done. The police only found out about the tapes 16 months later.
What was your reaction? Do you remember?
You don't want this on.
People jeer Paul Bernardo, now a convicted murderer.
Kill him. Kill him.
You should get rid of him. Kill him.
Public hanging. String him up.
Showing no emotion in court, Bernardo turned and faced the jury as the verdict. Couple brutally raped and tortured the girls, videotaping it all for his sexual pleasure. It was powerful evidence, and the jury believed Homolka's story that Bernardo strangled the teenagers. She's serving 12 years for her role in the sex slayings.
Your daughter has been served.
As Karla's family left court, they were heckled but pleased with the verdict. Bernardo's lawyer, John Rosen, wasn't so happy and intends to appeal.
Well, I certainly was
watching when Bernardo strangled both girls with one of these black electrical cords found by police in Bernardo's basement. Bernardo's trial provided the first public airing of Homolka's deal with the Crown. In July of 1993, was videotaped by the Bernardos. Both teenagers were shown being raped and degraded by Bernardo and Homolka. In some scenes, Bernardo is beating the terrified and sobbing girls. For days, the court was stunned by the horrifying sounds of Mahaffy and French pleading and screaming while being subjected to unspeakable cruelty. Only the jurors, the judge, and the lawyers were allowed to see the terrible scenes. The public was permitted to hear the audio. When Homolka took the stand, she testified she was physically, sexually, and emotionally abused by Bernardo. She told the court of helping him drug and rape her younger sister Tammy at Christmas 1990. She said Bernardo wanted Tammy as a present. Tammy choked on her own vomit and died a short time after the attack, which was also videotaped. The trial reached the height of its drama when Bernardo took the stand in his own defense. His demeanor was icy. He showed no remorse as he clinically described his despicable crimes, calling his teenage victims props for sex. Spectators applauded and jeered as Bernardo was shipped off to jail. Justice Patrick Lesage told Bernardo his sentence was life imprisonment with no eligibility for parole for 25 years. Lesage commended...
Will never be given a sentence that will be justified for what he's done.
And nowhere wasn't the man who fathered him. Ken Bernardo now says he has an awful feeling their son is going to die in prison. Annette Hahn, Channel 11 News.
In the wake of this trial, there are...
Stalking and raping young women for 3 years.
I don't care what the police say. I don't care what the Ministry of the Attorney General says. Serial rapists are very rare creatures.
Toronto police released this composite drawing of the serial rapist. It was a dead ringer for Paul Bernardo. At that time, police had been told by several sources, including a former girlfriend, that Bernardo had an appetite for violent sex. They took a sample of his DNA, but the sample wasn't analyzed. For 2 years, it sat on the...
1991, when Leslie Mahaffy vanished from outside her Burlington home in the early morning hours. On June 29th, her body parts were found encased in concrete blocks in a lake near St. Catharines. The same day, Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka were married in a lavish fairy tale ceremony. They appeared happy and without a care. This is videotape of their honeymoon in Hawaii.
Here's my husband.
With my first mate.
My Hawaii.
I finally get my first wife.
Several honeymoons beforehand.
On April 16, 1993, Paul Bernardo was arrested at his St. Catharines home. When police went inside, they found the Bernardos appeared to have it all. Every room was fully furnished, from the master bedroom where the victims died to Bernardo's workshop where Mahaffy's body was dismembered with a power saw. This was what the house looked like when police were through searching. Officers spent weeks ripping the home apart for evidence. What they didn't find were the crucial videotapes. Bernardo testified they were hidden in a light fixture in the upstairs bathroom. 3 months later, the unemployed accountant was charged in connection with the teenager's death. The key witness against Bernardo was his ex-wife, Homolka. Homolka testified she was in the room watching when Bernardo strangled both girls with one of these black electrical cords found by police in Bernardo's basement. Bernardo's trial provided the first public airing of Homolka's deal with the Crown. In July of 1993, she pleaded guilty to manslaughter for her role in the girl's death and is serving a 12-year sentence. What set the case apart was that the ordeal of the victims was videotaped by the Bernardos. Both teenagers were shown being raped and degraded by Bernardo and Homolka. In some scenes, Bernardo is beating the terrified and sobbing girls. For days, the court was stunned. The judge and the lawyers were allowed to see the terrible scenes. The public was permitted to hear the audio. When Homolka took the stand, she testified she was physically, sexually, and emotionally abused by Bernardo. She told the court of helping him drug and rape her younger sister Tammy at Christmas 1990. She said Bernardo wanted Tammy as a present. Tammy choked on her own vomit and died a short time after the attack, which was also videotaped. The trial reached the height of its drama when Bernardo took the stand in his own defense. His demeanor was icy. He showed no remorse as he clinically described his despicable crimes, calling his teenage victims props for sex.
A great strength from her. We feel she's looking down on us, not only just us, but everybody. There isn't a minute goes by that you don't think of her during the day or the evening or what have you.
I feel a great sense of relief, but until we really know more about what's going on, I can't really say anything at this. I don't really want to say anything at this time.
Once the judicial process starts, then the whole focus centers on the accused, and I think it's time that we remember the devastation and the destruction that's left behind with these families that have to cope.
We feel it would be inappropriate and impossible to speak how we feel at this moment. The intensity of the overwhelming pain and strong emotions have once again swept us and rendering it impossible for us to adequately talk about the verdict, the death of Leslie, and what this moment really means to us. Only the trial is over. Leslie is still not coming home.
Finally today, with the guilty verdict, especially the guilty verdict for first-degree murder of our daughter, there is some sort of closure. Well, it can't return our daughter to us. We have the satisfaction of seeing this perpetrator punished. Now we would appreciate the opportunity to have some privacy for a period of time to come to terms with our feelings. After a time of reflection, we will be willing to speak to you all further. Finally, and as always, our final words for our daughter. With the trial over, Christy, you can't be hurt anymore. We love you.
be more than just one of the guys, but could never imagine becoming anything better than what one of the guys would consider pretty great, a party animal, a big nut, picking up girls in Florida.
Yes, Sacramento girls! Sorry.
Anything can be made to look foreboding and ominous. She stayed with him through all that, stubbornly, relentlessly, playing house, no matter what was really going on in the real world.
There was somewhere. It's right there.
Here's something. That the victims were swallowed up for such absurd, banal fantasies. A fantasy world you might find hilarious if it wasn't so tragic.
I do this one for you. I love stuff after crying stuff. I want to do this for you, okay, pal? 1, 2, 3, 4.
And once again, we know that the jury...
The tapes. Now, A, who in the right mind, unless you're a total perverted freak, would want to view those tapes anyway? That's just insane. Those things should be locked up in a vault or burned or something because no one should see that. I feel sorry for anybody that would want to see that. And if you do, there's a place like this down the street on Yonge Street, 25-cent peep show. You can get all kinds of that stuff, okay? So you don't need to try. Why would you want to see someone suffer? It doesn't make any sense, all right? If you want to, you're just as sick and twisted as Bernardo and this deranged life.
Heard anything as remotely horrific as this in your career?
As horrific, but not for such a prolonged period of time. I mean, that was the tough part, I suppose, on this, yeah.
What did you come away from the trial feeling like?
Dreadful, but, I mean, tired, emotionally drained, all the things that everybody, I think, involved in it feels, and unsatisfied. I don't blame lawyers for being nervous about the prospect of having politicians try and undo what is done in the court system, deals such as this, but I think what the public is probably owed is some sort of accounting from people in the Attorney General's office, the architects of this deal, just to tell us what their rationale was, to tell us what their thinking was. The only kind of explanation we've ever had came from Ray Houlihan sort of toward the end of the trial, and he wasn't one of the deal makers. I'd like to hear from Murray Siegel and Michael Code, and I think we should.
Murray Siegel is basically the...
From human.
Yeah. Now, why is he getting 25 years and not 2 consecutive sentences?
Very simple. You can only get one life to live. And
so you can go out and kill 15 people and only spend 25 years.
No, you can only spend 1 life in jail. All right? And you may die there. The sentence is life imprisonment. Nobody should ever forget that. That's what he's sentenced.
Yeah, but the sentence is life. No chance parole for 25 years?
That's right. You can't.
So it's conceivable the guy could be in there for 100 years.
Oh, sure, if he wants to live that long. I mean, I can't imagine why anybody would want to live that long in Kingston Penitentiary. But after 25 years, you make an application. That doesn't guarantee any success. There will be people like Mr. DeVilliers and other friends who will be down there to make the application against him getting parole. And God bless them for that if that's their position and strongly held. I don't have any problem with that.
All right, we'll get back to more pertinent issues about the Bernardo case and Karla's deal when our Talk Television special continues after a short break.
Parasites, etc., but I think people want to know about it. I just think it's really gross and vulgar and really obscene.
Why are we here then?
Well, I mean, as I said, we report on things, we don't create them.
Has anyone ever called you a ghoul for being here? Oh, yeah. Well, people come by and they shout out of their car window, ghoul. Just that, ghoul. Media scum, stuff like that.
At the beginning, I think we were described as voyeurs and just trying to sell newspapers and that kind of thing. I think a lot of people, when I talk to them and say I'm covering the Bernardo trial, they say, "Oh, you're sick and blah blah blah, and why would you guys do that?" But as details start to emerge about Karla Homolka's role, all of a sudden the tables turn.
There's more than just a double murder here. This is about a system that deals with criminals to get other criminals.
Karla Homolka was sentenced in a one-day closed-door session 2 years ago. There was a publication ban slapped on that. I think that people wanted to know, no matter how chilling and horrific the details of the crimes were, to see that justice was being served, because, of course, they did not see that in the Karla Homolka trial. These were bright young women in the prime of their lives, and I think by
being here every day and writing about it and giving it a lot of attention, that we've made them important to everybody. I hope so. I mean, that's what it's all about. And also, to know that, you know, evil walks among us. I mean, it lives next door. It's got blonde hair and blue eyes, and it's cute as a bug, and it can charm the pants off your parents and, you know, off us sometimes. So I think it's all really important.
I was anxious to be here, and certainly from a professional perspective, it's probably the biggest story I'll ever cover in my life. Nothing could prepare you for the reality of sitting through, you know, 3.5, 4 months of just the most despicable, nauseating, it's just evil in that courtroom.
It's intrusive later on in your day, or it is a part of your life that you would stumble up. You're definitely going to stumble upon it later on.
Everyone exposed to this 4-month horror show comes away with their own unique mix of pain and understanding. However, most agree it's far better to know the worst than it is to live in ignorance. I'm Dan Petkovsek, outside the University Courthouse for City Pulse.
There were people critical.
Well, I understand, you know, all the coverage during the trial, and I was watching it too. My husband wouldn't watch it. He was very upset by it. But as a woman and a potential victim, you know, I was interested as well. But I feel that now we're all playing into this media frenzy by watching programs like this, and I know I can't turn away either. I'd like to be able to turn the TV off.
Do you think maybe we're venting a little bit? We have to know more about why this happened and maybe understand a little bit about ourselves as a society as a whole?
I think so, and I think that part of it is seeing as much as possible on Paul himself and just trying to understand. I just can't understand myself, but the problem is that I think that we've removed ourselves from Kristen and Leslie, and we've become desensitized, and the fact is that nothing can bring these girls back, and it's all the more horrific that we've turned it into almost entertainment by trying to study Paul. And
it had to be covered nonetheless, Karen. I thank you for calling in. I'm not trying to cut you off, but we do have to move along here. Ben, I think we all suffered some bruises on our psyche as a result of this thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go as far as saying this is entertainment. It's got to be covered. This is an important trial only because there was so much public interest in it. Long before Karla Homolka's trial, when Kristen French went missing. One of the things that is hard for a reporter is, and I don't know if others would agree with me here, a criminal trial isn't really about the victims. It's about the accused. So it turns out about whether he's guilty or not. And yes, it is very hard to, I mean, you can't lose focus on Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffy. That just can't happen. But at times you are talking about his guilt or his innocence.
But the focus shifts from the crime to the accused and the process he goes through. Christy, what do you think? Let me get over here at the microphone first of all.
Well, I mean, I think the last thing the media was, any of us were in this case, was insensitive. I think none of us forgot about Kristen French or Leslie Mahaffy. I certainly didn't, and I don't think anybody did. This was a terrible thing, and every day you sat in that courtroom. I think it's important for people like our last caller to know this. Every day we sat in that courtroom, we thought of her. We sat right beside her parents, their parents, and we, you know, I mean, our pain's a fraction. I'm not pretending it's anything but everybody felt awful. The defense lawyers felt lousy. I mean, the prosecution felt lousy. This was a terrible thing, and nobody forgot. I mean, this was the worst example that caller could have picked to say that this was entertainment. This was entertainment for nobody.
Nobody wanted this as entertainment. Marianne Boucher, you were there.
Like Paul. Paul was